How's it going, everyone? The Packers with the 88th overall pick selected a running back in Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. So let's get a little bit deep dive into who Marshawn Lloyd is. So going into this draft, he was actually the 5th best running back according to the consensus draft board. But depending on who you talk to, he was a lot higher than that. Daniel Jeremiah had him as the best running back. Nick Saban had him as the 2nd best running back. And then on the consensus draft board, they overall thought he would get picked around 88th overall pick, which would be good value for him. And, well, the Packers picked him at exactly 88th overall. So he comes in with a RAS score of 8.62, comes in with a height of 5'8", 220 pounds, and did the bench press 25 times with the 40-yard dash of 4.46, which is pretty fast for a guy that size. For his time at the collegiate level, he spent 4 years in college. 3 years starting with South Carolina, played at South Carolina, he didn't start all 3 years. And then in his 4th year, he played at USC. So with South Carolina, he overall had 175 rushing attempts for 801 rushing yards at a 4.6 yard clip and 10 touchdowns. Then at USC, had 116 attempts, 820 rushing yards, and 7.1 yards per carry with 9 touchdowns to add to it. So a pretty good rushing season for him, especially at USC. Now, he also added some receiving to that. So at South Carolina, he had 21 receptions for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. And at USC, added another 13 receptions for 232 yards, no touchdowns over at USC, but has some type of receiving prowess, which is good to have, especially with Matt LaFleur's offense. And if we're to look at the PFF grade for Marshawn Lloyd, especially in his final 2 years, one at South Carolina before transferring over to USC. At South Carolina, had 110 attempts for 565, of course, had an offensive grade of 77.9, a run grade of 83.7, but a fumble grade of 63.8 due to the fact he did fumble twice in those 110 attempts. So that's a pretty high fumble ratio because it's 1 in every 55 attempts. Not really ideal for a running back. But what he does come with that I noticed was that in those 565 total rushing yards, 445 of those were after the first contact. So he pretty much averaged 4.05 yards per attempt after first contact, which is pretty darn good. Then over at USC, 115 attempts for 816 yards, had an offensive grade of 81.7, a run grade of 87.2, but a fumbling grade of 51.7 as he fumbled 3 times in 115 attempts. So once again, not very good. He pretty much had 5 more attempts and fumbled 1 more time. So he has some slight fumbling problems. But Gutekunst says they feel like that is something they can rectify and pretty much fix. So they're not extremely worried about his fumbling problems at the collegiate level. Then lastly, on his 2023 season with USC, out of the 816 total rushing yards, 457 of those yards were after first contact. So pretty much averaged 3.97 yards per attempt after first contact. So he can break a lot of tackles and has broken a lot of tackles at the collegiate level. So what are some of the pros for Marshawn Lloyd? Well, he has great acceleration and burst, and he flies to and through the second level. Home run long speed, threat to take one all the way at any time. Good stop-start explosiveness, ability to make people miss in space. Untapped potential as a pass catcher, showed quality hands and ability to win in space in limited reps. Now, as for some of the cons for him and some things he's going to have to work on. High, upright rushing style saps him of balance and power. Below average vision and conviction as a runner, needs to press upfield and take what is there more often. Unproven pass protector, and that's something that's kind of big, especially with Matt LaFleur. So we did develop A.J. Dillon with that, so hopefully we can develop, depending on how much development's needed, we could develop Marshawn Lloyd in that aspect as well. And ball security issues. Low, loose carriage invites the ball being punched out, which is pretty much just bringing it up here more. So I can see how Gutekunst feels like they could easily correct that, especially if he's just hanging it low, and that's what caused a lot of these fumbles, is bring it up, similar to like Ahman Green for the Packers, or even with the Giants with Tiki Barber, who used to hang it down low till he brought it up here tight to his chest. Easy rectifiable to where it'll limit the amount of fumbles, so it can be easily coachable. It's just going to take some time and all that. So I could see why they feel like they could just break his fumbling problems. Now, as for the below average vision, there's been some experts and scouts that say he has below average vision. Then there are some scouts that say he has pretty good vision. So it's going to be kind of a wait and see approach during training camp and his reps in the preseason to figure out, does he actually have good vision or poor vision, or what's the case with that when it comes to Marshawn Lloyd. But with the addition of Marshawn Lloyd now with the Packers, he can and probably will be competing for the number 2 running back slot with A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon is on a very team-friendly deal, and where if we did cut him per se because of however training camp goes, it's not going to be a detriment. It's not going to hurt us in the salary cap in any way. He's kind of expendable in a sense with how his contract's set up. So right now, obviously, Josh Jacobs is the pure number 1. There's no question there. A.J. Dillon's got some competition over here with Marshawn Lloyd. And then we have Emmanuel Wilson, who has shown some promise, but we don't really know exactly what to make of Emmanuel Wilson. He's been injured. So yes, he shows the potential, but can he further grasp it? Like, we've seen this before, and this was a receiver in Juwan Winfrey. Like, he showed a lot of promise in training camp, but he couldn't put it together and pretty much didn't find any time in the regular season with the receiving crew. So there's going to be an interesting battle over there in competition in the running back group. So having Marshawn Lloyd to compete with A.J. Dillon maybe spark something under him and maybe could become the player that we all kind of wanted him to be when we drafted him, or maybe have a 3-headed monster. The best case scenario, you never know. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Pack Go.